So how you should build that portfolio. I want to give you a couple of insights on how I would do it if I was starting out from scratch right now and how we'll build a portfolio. I also want to give you a couple of tips on what I think you should have in that portfolio and how you should treat your portfolio. But also I want to share with you a long session that I had with a one-on-one student in one of my mentorship programs, and we took a look at some of the work that he was doing for the project and how I sort of edited a little bit just to kind of enhance certain things, because we really go deep into how we can take something that we have and try to polish it a lot further to for presentation for portfolio. But before we go into that recording, because this is going to be more on the longer side, video is going to be over an hour because of the recording. I want to talk a little bit about portfolio building and some of the things that you should have and how I would treat the whole thing. Now, for the recording itself, I want to share with you, uh, before we go into his whole project, just sort of what you will see. And this is one of the images that he was working on as part of his world building concept phase. We have these probes, and I want to give you the whole recording of how I redo this whole image here on the left, because I like what I see on the right. But here on the left, there's a few things that you will see that I would like to change, and how I would take it from scratch. I'm starting the image from scratch from here into here. And so you will actually see the whole process of this and my conversation with the students, with my students in terms of why I'm doing certain things. But let's talk a little bit about portfolio first, because, and I want to use his artwork as an example because I think it's relevant to this. Now, this student, his name is Chris Zhao, and he's working on this pretty cool project, which I really like a lot. And just to give you a quick rundown, this is some of the work that he did throughout the weeks. He has these probes that go, he has three designs, right, which are these over here. And these probes are sort of like floating in the air, sort of like levitate, sort of like flying in the air, collecting energy from, thunderstorms and stuff like that. And so we went through a whole series of sketches and iterations and projects. And one of the questions was, how far should I take this project, or, what should I include in the portfolio based on this project? And the way I broke it up is that, portfolios should be the way that you are going to show what your skills are, right? It should be a reflection of what your skills are. And most of the time, you cannot really showcase all your skills with just one image. It's just almost impossible, right? Unless you're doing like illustration and that sort of portfolio, yes, of course. But for concept design, you want to be able to show a lot of different skills, right? Like iteration, design, composition. You also want to show how you are projecting the functionality of the things that you're building, right? And so, how they function, their purpose, and how they integrate and their context into the actual environment as a whole. So there's a lot of elements that you cannot really portray in just one image. And so, as a concept designer for environments, you want to showcase these skills in one portfolio project. And so you may have to do 3 images, you may have to do 5, 10, whatever the case may be. It's going to vary, and depending on how much you want to do for that particular project, we should be able to showcase this as a project as a whole, because technically that's exactly how we're going to do it in the workplace, right? And so with this, right, he has already a bunch of work done for this project. And one of the things was how we're going to showcase the design of these 3 different probes that have different scale, they have different functions, they live in different places in the environment. And one of the suggestions, right, so all these were great, right, but one of the suggestions was, let's show these it's sort of like an environment where they actually live, and how we can sort of sell the idea even more that these live like in the air collecting thunder and or lightning, and they sort of live up there in this sort of like chaotic, very cloudy sort of sky. And so this is what he came up with, which this has the right idea, But we have to, one of the things that we were talking about is that we have to think that why we're doing the things that we're doing, right? So I took this one, for example, and you will see this in the video as we go through it. But I want to make sure that if I do something like this, that the background enhances what I have on the front, which is the actual design of the concept design, right? So I want to use the environment, I want to use the lighting, I want to use everything that I'm doing technically to showcase and enhance what I have already here. And he did this great 3D models, right? So he has a lot of information on these 3D models that we don't want to lose as much. Or we want to take advantage of them, right? And so for the portfolio, my suggestion is that, let's say that you have those three, and this is just a repetitive image, but let's say that we have those three probes, right? That's a great support image, right? Because we're showcasing the design. We have these different views. We can see the material. We can actually see here on the left the type of environment that they live. We can almost see like in action type thing. But he also have all these callouts, which are great for the functionality of the devices, right? So how they work, how they rotate, the purpose of certain areas, how the electricity moves, and all that, which is a great information about the object itself, right? We also have a little bit of exploration, right? This should be, I would say, maybe 10-15% of the whole project as a whole, right? I don't want this to overtake everything that we're doing up here. And my other suggestion was an image that will showcase, and this is sort of like a sample of it. This is not the final, where it showcases the different tiers of locations where these probes live at based on the city. So some of them live like really close to the city, some of them live a little bit higher, and then another version lives a lot higher than the other ones, right? And so we want to showcase, and the reason we're doing all this stuff, right, is because as concept designers, we need to explain visually all these answers for all these questions that we're going to have on the project, right? So all this, questioning, when you're building something, you have to create all these questions that, how they work, where are they going to live, what are the materials, and you have to be able to answer those in your images. And so the better that you can do that, the better you can be a designer, right? And so the last thing will be creating maybe one or two of key art where we can put everything that we have done, right, together into one piece. And this is to really showcase how far rendering wise you can really take an image. And this is also to sell the idea of the rest of the stuff. And so what I want to portray here with this group of images is all these different things and different designs and answers and skills that I have, and showcasing into one big project. And so this one will showcase how well I can render, how great I can do composition and lighting and mood. But these maybe showcase how well I can design, how well I can integrate different types of material, the shapes and the silhouettes of the things that I design. These sort of reflect how I am thinking of their functionality, how they work, all the little details that we need to figure out in order to make them believable. And how we got to those ideas with the sketches. And this also shows part of how they're designing order, in order to be at the tier of height that they're at. And so I'm answering all these questions with all these images, and then I can bundle that into one big portfolio piece. And so that's how I treat, that's how I would treat the portfolio pieces, right? And portfolios should reflect, again, your skill. So we have to take care and take advantage of that as much as possible. Now, right now I will show you, I will put the clip of the recording with the paint over, or the redo of this, so you can actually see the whole process of that. It probably took us about an hour and a half ish, I think. So it wasn't really that long because he had a really nice model. I just took his model, put it into a new Blender file, and just started from there. And then you can see the whole process. I won't speed it up, especially in the hours that I'm talking, just so you can actually see the whole process. But I hope you guys can take something out of that. and gives you some insights into how to push something that you already have into enhancing it to make it a little bit better. All right, I hope you guys like it. Let's try this one. So I'm gonna import it as a plane. Now, I'm not going to be extremely picky about this because I know I can fix it later in Photoshop.
Mhm.
And I can always go to my object here, RGB curve, and just play with the values of the. So you can see that on this, right? I have, if I bring this into Photoshop, right, and I turn it to black and white, you can see that a lot of these values here on the background are either competing, right, with the main area, which is this,
Oh,
or very similar to it. So it sort of like gets lost a little bit, right? So I want to have a good contrast between that because I wanna make that prop pop, right? But still be implemented in the uh, in the environment. I'm gonna add some lighting here. Now this is a good opportunity for me to start adding just a little bit of extra lighting. Still want to keep it soft. I actually like this a lot for some reason. I'll tell you why in a second. Maybe. Hmm. Now again, I'm gonna add things based on my taste and the things that I like, right? But you can translate that into what you think is right for your taste. The other thing I want to do actually is I want to grab this whole thing. I want to make sure that there's no modifiers, so I'm gonna merge them all, and I'm gonna put it just as one piece. And I'm gonna find the right based on this camera, right? I'm gonna rotate it and just to see what angle works the best for this particular thing. I mean, this one looks. I like this one because I can see three of the things, and there's a nice
mhm.
angle here. It doesn't look square and flat. I may be able to like even rotate it a little bit like this, so we can see the front.
Oh,
You know,
okay.
I may do another camera and just to experiment. I can try and see because these things you're most likely going to see them from the bottom up because these things are high in the sky, right? And so if I have a shot like this might not be the best accurate representation of how I'm going to see them most of the time, right? So I might even do something where I may look at it like this. Even if I lose on this particular shot, just the details on the top, I know I have those in my other images, right? Because I can showcase them in other ways. So I may even do something like this. I actually like this a little bit better. Yeah, I might actually like this bottom personally. This I think either one could work, but oops. I still want to have a one direction of the main source of light, but sometimes, you know, if I want to showcase maybe a little bit of what's the hell is that?
Oh, that's the nods. It's
Mm,
okay, you can delete those.
yeah. All right, here we go. And so sometimes I want to do, I could do it with a point light or area light maybe, just to kind of see the results. But I make this really bright. Definitely not like that, even though it looks cool. But the thing that I'm trying to portray also is if this thing is close to the city or something, there's like light from the city, you know.
Okay, I see. Alright.
And it's just like even this, right? So you see it here, like even just this bounce light coming up. Of course, we can paint over that a little bit just to make it less obvious. But sometimes that helps quite a bit. Let me save this. All right, save it like that. The other thing that you even, I mean, that I would even play with is that just for fun. Let me see. I want to be able to. So this is the other thing. You know, I'm looking at the image, right, and I'm like, I mean, it's getting pretty dark, which it will be, right, in a scenario like this, right, because there's all these clouds and maybe some lightning, and it will create some harsh light or whatever. But for a render itself, I still want to have more information than less, right? I still want my image. I'd rather my image to be a little bit brighter than too dark, right? So I know I can darken things. So I might use my SGRI to just bring everything up a little bit. Just so we can see. We don't need to see every single thing, right? But we still want to be able to see something. So maybe 1.3. Because we can always darken it later. Now, do you have, gonna be the $1 million question here. Oh, no roughness. Okay. This is the only thing that I can probably, you can probably tell which doesn't take a lot. So this metal texture here, I can bring in just like a, that texture like, like this one here, or similar to this, something like that, where I can just drop it in here, put it on the roughness. So I want to take advantage of that metal texture and then add a ramp. Now with the ramp, I'm going to play with the contrast of it, right? So I'm getting a little bit of that,
Oh,
you know, and this
okay.
might be too reflective. So I'm just going to bring my value up a little bit. Sort of play with the with the slider, depending on what the results you want to have, right? Now, if this was more of a stylized maybe type of thing, I probably wouldn't do that. But I'm trying to figure out what is this texture here. Let's see. Oh, you have another metal here. Let's see. Get this one. Let's try that. I'm gonna copy this whole thing. Put it onto the metal. Oops. Metal. Copy. Paste. Put that on roughness. Now for metallic, most of the time, or probably 99% of the time, it's either metallic or no metallic. So you always, and this is more of a 3D thing that I've learned. You either want to go 0 or 1. It's usually that way. So like,
Why?
so what?
I mean, why though? I mean, it's just
I'll tell you now.
either rough or smooth.
So it's not like
Okay.
roughness, right? It's not like roughness where you have a gradient of how reflective something is, right? Um, I'll show you an example here. Um, oh, actually, I can show you online. Hold on, a little bit easier. Let's see. Hold on. Let me see if this one has it. Yeah. So I'll show you what the metallic. So this is the metallic map for this asset that I'm going to show you, right? It's either black and white. There's barely any gray areas. And if there is, it's probably because that's not a actual part of the model on the UVs. And so this, and I'll show you what the, let me put it here on the, right? You can see here. And you can see that, for example, here, these parts here, which is this parts here, right? I'm gonna show that metallic texture. Put some light here so you can actually see it. Right, so you get this sort of effect, right? And like, well, actually, I'm gonna put it on cycle so you can actually see it. Right, and so you will get that metallic effect on those areas because that's where the map itself is at, right? And this is more of a painted thing, so that wouldn't be, you know, metallic itself because it's painted. It has like paint, but wherever the paint doesn't, wherever the paint is just scratched like that, it will look a little bit, you know, it will look different because of that um, metallic thing. Now, if you're going for more of a look, like, oh, it looks a little bit better with 0.2, like sometimes I do that, right? But just for the technicalities of 3D, sometimes you either want to go, because usually you will have a map for metallic, and so it will tell the model where it's going to be metallic, where it isn't. But now even just this, like you see this, like this is a great, sort of like a little a little thing that you can just add just a little bit of extra detail there. And it doesn't take a lot, right? Just like bringing an image, and normally you use pretty much the same image a lot of the times for stuff like this, because like you can just never tell, and it would just add a little bit of extra, detail that you may not have to do in Photoshop. The other thing that I'll probably even play with, and this might or may not work, but it's gonna add a material to this. I may even play with the position of the lighting. Now this might be stretching it a little bit, right? But this could be something that I'll probably play just to kind of get, okay, do I want it that way, or do I want maybe something that looks like, a little bit in like perspective, so it's like coming here, or maybe I want something that is coming from the camera into the thing sort of way. Right, and that way that will give me, of course I'll make it probably a little bit more thinner, and I will separate it probably on render passes and stuff like that, but that could be another thing to play with. Then another thing is I want to bring in some clouds here. Ooh, that was cool. I can definitely add these in Photoshop for sure, but maybe I can get something kind of cool in here. The problem with this is that you get the shadow from the lights that are around there, so it's going to be a little bit more of a pain to set them right. So you see how I'm integrating the asset with the environment and all that, in comparison to like here, right? um, I'll show you a cool way that you can add that sort of lighting effect inside in Photoshop. I'm trying to see if I can get something cool from an actual light. But this might be too much because I'm getting this really hard lighting here. I think we can get it in a better way. See, I like what's happening up here, but I don't like this here. Ooh. Because there would be light inside here, right?
Yeah, it's sort of like a spinning generator. Hmm. It's like inside the
Mm. Mm.
container itself. I mean, it's okay to show a little bit of lighting,
Yeah, yeah. I'll do it in
but
Photoshop.
indicating like uh,
Yeah, like
there's
there's like,
something going on
right.
inside. Yeah,
Yeah.
instead of just like a pitch black.
Because I mean, I haven't even talked about like I want to show. If I showcase it like this, like the way I'm doing, like I'm gonna do some um what do you call that, motion blur on the things like they're actually moving, you know, and I want to show all
Oh,
that stuff, like all this stuff here,
I
like this
thought
is.
just to showcase the design though. I
I
didn't know that I had to push it like that far.
mean, again, these are like those things are not really make or break, but like this like remember we're still showcasing the design on all these, so like this is not just our one image, right? Like we're showcasing the design on everything here, so we want to take advantage of what we're doing here to really sell the idea, right? Because this is to sell the idea, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
So okay, it's not that complicated, Chris. It's not that complicated. Like we'll make that in a few minutes. Like I mean, I've been just in here starting from scratch. It's been like what, like 20 minutes, 25 minutes. It's really not that. And the thing is, like, I'm spending the time on this one because I know for the other two, I'm just gonna put the model here, take the chat render, and then that's it. Like, I don't need to do this whole thing
Oh,
again. You know what I mean?
okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, I'm not gonna redo that.
Oh. Will you still treat this as like uh maybe like a full on like a render piece then?
Yeah, I think
Like
so.
a money shot type of stuff? Okay.
Yeah, I think so because that's the only shot that you have that will have that. Um, because I want to sell the idea, right? I still like I want to sell the idea, especially for that particular shot, for that, or that particular section of this images, right?
Mm, okay.
It wouldn't be full on like it wouldn't be something like this, right? Where you have a lot of things going on, but it will still be treated like that just to kind of really enhance the idea of this thing. And the last thing that I want to do is do the same thing for the metal that I did here for the grain one, because that's where we have the most surface area. I want to be able to have just a little bit more of, yeah. Yeah, it's just a little bit. And we're still actually I'm gonna do it for the gold too. Trying to think if I'm missing something that I want to add. I'm liking the saturated colors here. Again, I'm going with my own personal taste on this. And the other thing is I like the really high intensity highlights. And so I know I don't want them like all over this place, but I know that in Photoshop I can shrink them with painting to make them like really hot, like hot spots type thing. And so I want to take advantage of that too. Hmm. Yeah, I'm gonna try it in Photoshop. If I don't get it in Photoshop, I can probably come back here, just add a little bit of lighting. Yeah, because I still want to get that sort of like inside workings effect.
Mhm.
Right. I'm gonna render this and we'll take it. What do we got? Let's do. All right, so I do want some render passes. So I'm gonna go with OpenEXR. Let me see what these render passes look like. Miss pass looks horrible. Fix that. Let's do 250. Um, and let's take a look at diffuse direct. I like that. Let's do that as well. We want ambient occlusion and environment. Now I think I'm gonna delete um the clouds that I added. So I know I can add them in Photoshop. I don't want my, we'll have that there. The other thing is I could do cryptomatte by object. This will give me a layer per object. That's which is it makes it just a little bit easier to separate certain things. And I want to separate actually. Nope. Yeah, I want to separate these just so I can know I want to add that little blur effect. So it's gonna be easy if I can separate these. And that's it. Save that. All right, let's render this. As you can see, a setup like this doesn't take a long time.
You added something?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
say that again.
I was gonna ask, like, how many samples do you need when you render?
Oh, I normally go
At
like
in
around
the
100. I normally go 100,
So, okay.
but for these, for example, I did 250 for these, and for these, I did 250.
50?
Um,
Okay.
yeah, I'm doing 150 on this one just to kind of see. The problem is that if you're using cycles, right, and you're using and you're getting render passes, when you have like opacity in materials, the mist pass looks like super grainy, and so um sometimes I have to increase the samples in order for the mist pass, which is the render pass that I use the most, so it doesn't get too grainy. Because if it gets too grainy, I cannot use it, and so um so depending on the situation.
So you increase the number based on uh, the sample pass, right? If it's not clear enough.
Um, well, depending on the image, if it's like a whole scene, I will increase it to like 250, 200. Like if it's a scene like this, right? That I'm doing like there's a lot of stuff happening. But if it's like a call out like this one, I'll just keep it at 100 because it's just enough for me, you know. Um, like I don't use a mispass on this. I don't need it to be super clear because I know I'm gonna paint over and do all the work. But if it's something like this, I want to make sure that I have it. And a lot of times, like when I render scenes like this, I actually just press enter and leave, and I take a break and go eat or whatever. I just leave it, and then when I come back, I can just grab it.
Okay.
All right, so these are render passes. This is good. And now we have our nice objects here, which is great. So let's get this to work. And I've been through this process many times, but it's very similar. If we can do this in like 10 minutes or 20. And we'll compare it when we're done just to kind of see if it was worth it or not. But you know, for something like this, like if I have a really good model like the one that you have, I will set myself and you don't have to do it with this number, but I always keep it in mind. I always set myself like I don't want to spend more than an hour on getting the final image. So I will spend like 30 minutes or 20 minutes on the 3D and then the rest in Photoshop doing the things that I need to do. And so I still want to be able to do that. All right. So let's do some selections here. Channels, save that. I'll save this as well. Just saving some selections there just so it's easier to work certain things. The first thing that I want to do is deal with some. So, and I do this in my mind, but just to kind of try to give you what it's in my mind. Right now, it looks very um like I like what's happening with the lighting, the integration, but right now it looks the object and then the background is like very far away. Like they look there's no connection between them. So I want to try to see if I could connect them somehow. That could mean a bunch of different things, but that's one of the issues that I want to be able to resolve as I'm working this, right? Um, The other is this. Let's bring this. This stupid thing with Photoshop, man. Fix it. I want to maybe have a little bit of difference of distance even within this one object, right? So this has more separation than this, right? And so this will allow me to maybe push certain things back a little bit. And let's change this a little bit. The other thing is this one. I want to duplicate it, invert it, and do the same thing, but I'm gonna put it on multiply. See how this works. Now I use the mispass, right? So I have this. I could make it. Let's make it a little bit more drastic here. I can use the mispass as a selection. So if I control click the layer, copy it, make a new channel, paste it. Now I have a selection based on distance. What this means is if I have a color, let's say, let me turn this off. If I have this color, I can use that selection as a mask, and it will sort of blend everything in based on distance, which is kind of like a cool effect for certain things. Yeah, even something like that, where it sort of breaks a little bit the edges of the 3D, helps a lot to sort of like integrate it. Could even play with the idea of maybe this might be pushing it, but we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe. Maybe. This is a time for me to really just explore and experiment maybe different things. Now I can really come in here and add a little bit of that effect that I was telling you about earlier. It's just a little bit of, I still want to break a little bit of that 3D-ness to it. And this is a time where I just go in and add imperfections and all that stuff in there. Of course, have to fix this thing here, which I probably would have fixed it in 3D, just because I know I don't want to deal with the painting process of fixing this thing here. Maybe simplify a little bit, whatever that case may be. But this stuff here, like for example, this right here, this is a good example of simplifying. Like I take a look at this area, right? And I'm like, yeah, the lighting will react that way, but maybe simplifying this part here will make it more simple to understand. This is a curve, so maybe the transition is a little bit. Instead of go around the whole image and try to find for ways to simplify certain things. Like I even break things a little bit more. Like maybe maybe there is a break here. It's very subtle things. I'm almost thinking that this will have a very similar, and again, it could be, you could have a different opinion on it. This will have a very similar construction as an airplane, where you see all these cutouts, right, and pieces. You have like the big shape of the wing, for example, but then you have all this little breakups, right, and
Oh,
this like this little like the bolts and all that, and you know that sort of it's not like one humongous piece. It's like one piece made out of little things, right? Like this.
and do you think like this should be done in 3D then?
No,
If
I'll probably do
it's
it. I mean, depends. I think it's gonna really depend on how maybe how much you're gonna use these models. Because if it's just for this concept, right? I'll probably just do it once. But if you know this is gonna be like an ongoing project, I'll probably um I'll probably do that in 3D or as much as possible, you know.
all right.
But only if you're gonna reuse it and do all that stuff, you know. Now, I want to get rid of most of that white, but I still want to have it in certain areas, right? So you see this block here, I'll probably just reduce that a little bit just to make that white part just even hotter, right? And it's just very subtle, but it helps a lot. And I would do this throughout like the whole image, right? I'll just spend like 30 minutes, an hour, just like painting over this stuff. And that's gonna vary depending on how much work you have to do, depending on the model itself, which I don't think you have a lot. Um, but you see, like I will simplify things like this, right? Where I get this piece and I would just simplify it like that. That's coming from the roughness, but not that biggie. And I'll sort of do that all throughout. Then I can go into my ambient occlusion, duplicate that, invert that. And now you can see what I was talking about. Can put that on lighten, colorize it. I'll play with the levels here. You can pick whatever color you want, but I put a mask on it, and now I can go in here and say, okay, let's see. I want a little bit of that affecting here. It's just a suggestion.
Okay.
See that? See how easy?
Oh, yeah. Because I thought like I would have to go in Blender and create a light source and put a light in there.
Yeah, but you know, I only know that because I know this technique, right? So if I know that I want that effect, I know I don't have to worry about it in Blender because I know I can do it easily with ambient occlusion shadow render passing here, right?
Ah, all right.
It's really just a suggestion that of what's happening. You don't have to 100% show it, you know? It's just like a little suggestion because the mind, whenever it looks at it, it's gonna figure out what it is.
Yeah, I was gonna put like light source like the area that I think was gonna
Mm-hmm.
like function, and
Yeah,
then
that would take you longer.
my computer just couldn't handle the
Yeah,
render.
yeah. So what I like to do when I do this kind of shot, right? So I have the motion blur, right? But you have this still very hard edge element. And so sometimes, and I normally do this like right at the end. I copy everything into one layer, add that effect, and now I can let me bring it back here. I'll add a new layer. We can do it this way. And I can either, well, the problem is that, hold on, let me separate this a little bit. I'll paint behind the object. And normally I will have had this already because I like to work my background separate from the actual object. So I could do stuff like this and other things. But so you have this. Just do a little bit of this one here. Bring my object back. I'll bring my effect, which is this one. And then I sort of erase, or not erase, but using a mask, play with where I want the hard edges and where I don't want to.
Oh, okay.
You know,
Okay.
because you don't want to have both the
Yeah.
hard edge and the. It's just a little touch, right? It's not. It's not like you're gonna get it exactly right, but maybe it sells the idea that this thing is like really moving. And I'm gonna take it even further. Maybe we'll see. But by adding well, let me add some let me add some more of these. Oh, I actually like that up there. Merge this, make it darker. Actually, like that up there. Just want to bring a little bit of a you know, get rid of some of these really dark areas by bringing some of that clouds in there. Now, this that I'm gonna try might be too much. All right, so don't go crazy. I just want to try it just to kind of see what it looks like. but I know it doesn't take me too long to try, so I just want to give it the opportunity. I want to be very subtle about it. Hmm. Really pouring in here.
Yeah, I already feel so defeated looking at this.
Why? What do you mean?
Well, that means I really gotta push it to this quality. But it
Don't
looks
feel
really good.
defeated. Oh, thank you. Don't feel defeated. Should give you hope. I'm trying to push it as much as I can, just because we don't have a like establishing shot yet, right? So I wanna try to bring a little bit of that um, into this, and I could be planning, right? I know maybe I could have a plan for a bigger shot where I can see a lot of this stuff happening in the environment. But this is also when I work in stuff like it's it's easier to develop quality with something this small in terms of like a prop or something like that, to have that mentality of like, how can I push it further, what things can I do to make it better. Then if I have a full scene where there's a lot going on, it's harder for me to figure out, because there's so much stuff going on, right? So if I really put my that mindset into something more simple, like a prop or a call out like this, the same mentality, then I can bring it into something bigger. You know what I mean?
Oh
So
yeah,
it's so
you
when I
start small.
yeah, so if I want to, if my goal is to really try to um figure out how can I push things like further in terms of like the quality and how they look and how they are presented, it's better for me to do it, with something like this. Or I always try to do it with something like this, where it's very manageable, um, and it's just overall easier to deal with. So do you have right now? So I can think of a few more, which I'm gonna do now. But what would you do to make it better right now?
And now,
Yeah, like if you look at it and like,
um,
oh, what can I add? What can I delete? What can I do? What do you think is missing here?
uh, probably maybe a little bit more lighting, as well as maybe add a couple of these things in the back, just to sell like there's more
Nope,
of these things that's
not that.
floating around. On that,
No, not that for sure. Because this is all about this thing right here. We don't want to make it a whole scene.
then
What do you think we can add?
probably maybe I don't know, maybe more wiring to
Or
this,
what?
more those dangling wires, and like probably a little bit more of those coloring of the lightings that's fueling this thing to uh float above in the sky. So,
Oh, like the actual lighting?
oh, I mean, maybe not so much, but just to indicate like it's functional.
Yeah, the lighting we for sure need to add. And I'll probably do that very. Let's see here. Probably just do like a layer with a outer glow. Have some coloring here. Yeah, yeah, lighting for sure. Um, and I'll probably keep it super minimal. I always like to when I do lighting, I always like to actually make it kind of thick, and then I'll go with a texture erase, and I sort of get rid of some of the thickness just to bring some variation into it. And that adds like helps me add a little bit of angles to the actual lightning that I didn't have before, just because I'm erasing instead of painting it. Now, the other thing that I was thinking about was um, adding decals.
All
Anything that's
right. Yeah.
anything that's manufactured
Yeah.
normally does. Now, this is going to be a little bit
Yeah, I was
tricky.
gonna,
Go ahead.
I mean, shouldn't, yeah, the decals, yeah, yeah, I should have thought about that. I probably should have been like done earlier in the 3D phase then.
I would definitely do this for this particular case, mostly on the 3D because of the round shapes. So it's gonna be hard for me to match the the decal to the roundness of the shape, you know, in Photoshop. And so in Blender, it's a lot easier to do that, and I can already have it in there, you know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was watching the video that you shared with us on the decal stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a little bit
Now that
easier.
I think about it, like I probably have to make my own then. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, but I'll go around and just add a few. Um, and you can even sometimes I even like paint them up like little ones. Like sometimes there's like stickers and stuff like that that you only can read when you're like super close, you know. So like maybe there's like a maybe there's like a little like with the lighter there. It's like a sticker there, like that white. Right. So you know all the everything that's manufactured always will have like things in it. It has like and I wouldn't go overboard, right? Of course, but I'll definitely show that this will have that.
Decals, you design the shape first in 3D, right? Then you do the actual image in Photoshop,
Yeah.
or you, or is it the other way? You
No, yeah, I get the shapes in Blender just because it's easier to like
okay?
to grab things and move them around and edit them and array them and all that stuff. I don't have to deal with like layers in Photoshop and like all this stuff, and it's just easier for me.
Okay, gonna have to try that then.
Yeah, I really like doing decals that way. And so at the end, I merged everything and duplicate it. And again, I could have done more painting. Like I probably would have um, simplified the wood texture a little bit, right? Just so it doesn't look too grainy. Um, because that's the only texture here that it looks like that. So I want to make sure that it doesn't. Like I want to simplify it just a little bit. Maybe add like a little cracking here or something, just some imperfections here and there. See, like here, how it looks like very noisy. Or just simplify that. Um, but you see, you know, we lose certain things from the 3D, but it's just to have a better, more clear image, right? We don't want to have when we do this, we don't have to have all these really hard edges all throughout the model because it's gonna look very 3D-ish. Like that's good this, for this sort of images, right? The ones on the right here, that's good. But for images like this, you know, we wanna have a little bit of a of the hump. And so
Right.
if I go into view filter, camera raw filter, now I can really just play with final color corrections and all that. So add a little bit of grain, some clarity, color grading. Now I can play with this just to kind of see what I like. Go to details, Sharpening a little bit, not too much. Oh, that's okay. So very subtle. The other thing is like at the end I can do I duplicate it again. I only enable the red channel there, and then I move this layer just slightly, especially since we have lighting. I want to get that chromatic aberration effect. But I'll put a mask on it and then paint the mask black, and then I just paint where I want that chromatic aberration effect. I definitely want it on the lighting. And anything that's sort of moving, or that I want sort of like a little bit of blurred out effect, I don't want it on the areas that I want sharp and clear.